He was one step from boarding the flight that could change his life, until a stranger's shaking hand stopped him. What he didn't know was that missing that plane wouldn't be the end of his dream. It would be the beginning of something far greater. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. The hum of voices filled O'Hare International Airport like a soft storm. Luggage wheels rolled across the polished floor. Children cried, announcements crackled over loudspeakers. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Jared Miles moved with purpose. He was 41, a seasoned auto technician with calloused hands, aching knees, and a folder tucked tight under his arm. Inside were resumes, letters of recommendation, and one last shot at a better future. He checked the overhead monitor. Flight 620 to Atlanta. On time. Gate C12, final boarding in 30 minutes. Jared quickened his pace, weaving through a crowd of business travelers and tired tourists. His worn boots squeaked on the floor as he adjusted the strap of his bag. This wasn't just another flight. This was the beginning of something new. A job interview with Northridge Auto Solutions. Full benefits. Regular hours. No more night shifts. More time with his son, Eli. More time to care for his aging mother. As he passed the security checkpoint, he noticed a woman near the edge of the line. She stood alone, her small frame wrapped in a faded gray coat. Her hair, silver and tied in a low bun, shook slightly as she struggled to lift a suitcase onto the conveyor belt. 2 more bags sat beside her, each looking heavier than the last. Travelers passed by without stopping. Some glanced her way, most didn't. Jared kept walking. 28 minutes. He could make it if he moved fast. But then he paused. Something about her hands, trembling, determined, reminded him of his mother trying to lift grocery bags alone when she thought no one was watching. Pride, worn thin by the years. Jared looked at his watch again. 27 minutes. Then he stepped out of line. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said gently. "May I help you with those?" The woman looked up, surprised. Her eyes were clear blue and sharp, not unfriendly, but watchful, like she'd grown used to being overlooked. She studied him for a second, then gave a small smile. "I suppose you may," she said softly. "These bags feel like they've doubled in weight." Jared offered a chuckle as he hoisted the first suitcase with ease. The bag was old but sturdy, the leather worn at the edges. He lifted the second and third, placing them onto the belt while the TSA agent barely looked up. The woman stepped through the scanner with slow, careful movements. Jared waited, collected her bags on the other side, and walked with her toward a bench just past security. "Thank you," she said, settling onto the seat. "No problem at all," Jared replied. "Where are you headed?" "Charleston," she said, reaching into her purse to retrieve a crumpled boarding pass. "Gate D4. Jared felt a twist in his chest. That gate was far, 2 terminals away and a connecting hallway in between. His own gate C12 was behind them now. He had 21 minutes left. If he left now and jogged, he might just make it. He looked down at the woman again. She was trying to organize her bags, fumbling with a strap that wouldn't fasten. Her breathing was shallow. He noticed how she pressed a hand to her side, discreet but telling. Jared thought of the job, the suit waiting in his carry-on, the questions he'd practiced with his son the night before. He thought of the way Eli had hugged him that morning and said, "This is it, Dad. I know they'll pick you." And then he heard his mother's voice in his mind. "Your father never passed by someone who needed help," she used to say, not once even when it cost him. Jared exhaled. He adjusted the strap of his duffel and smiled. "Gate D4, huh?" he asked. "That's a bit of a walk. Mind if I join you?" The woman looked up. "I couldn't ask you to—" "You didn't," he said simply. She gave him a long look, then nodded. "My name's Lottie," she said. "Jared," he replied, extending his hand. Together, they walked slowly through the terminal. Jared matched her pace, offering his arm whenever she needed balance. Halfway through the connector tunnel, she mentioned she hadn't eaten that morning. Jared guided her to a bench and bought her a muffin and hot tea from a nearby kiosk, using the last few dollars in his wallet. "You should be getting to your flight," she said quietly between sips. Jared glanced at the clock. 10 minutes. He shook his head. There'll be other flights. You need to get to yours. She looked at him, her eyes filled with something between guilt and gratitude. You're a good man, she said. He smiled but didn't answer. When they finally reached gate D4, the boarding line had just started to move. Jared helped her to a seat by the window. He placed her bag at her feet and stood. You made it, he said with a smile. Are you sure you'll be all right? She asked. He nodded. I'll figure it out. As he turned to leave, Lottie reached into her purse. She pulled out a small folded piece of paper and handed it to him. Thank you, she said. In case I don't see you again. Jared tucked it into his wallet and walked away. He didn't look at it. Not yet. His flight was gone. But in his chest, he felt something strange. Not regret. Not worry. Something that felt like peace. The airport had quieted down. The afternoon rush was over and the terminal lights began to cast long shadows across the floors. Jared sat alone on a bench near baggage claim, his duffel bag by his side and the silence pressing in like a slow wave. People passed with rolling, suitcases and tired eyes, but no one looked his way. His phone was dead. He had no charger. No extra cash. No idea what to do next. Jared leaned back, closed his eyes and let out a long breath. He had missed the interview. The job he had worked so hard to prepare for was gone. Still, something in him refused to regret it. He thought about Lottie, the way her hands had trembled, how her voice had softened when she thanked him. She had needed someone and he had been there. That had to count for something. His fingers brushed his wallet and he remembered the note she gave him. Jared pulled it out. The paper was small, folded neatly in half. He opened it slowly. The handwriting was smooth and careful. Only 6 words were written. Stay nearby. You'll be found. He read the message again, then again. It made no sense. But there was something about it, something steady like a whisper in a storm. He folded the note and slipped it back into his wallet, unsure what to think. Stay nearby. You'll be found. He stood up and stretched. Maybe she meant to comfort him. Maybe it was just her way of saying thank you. Still, he stayed. Partly because he had nowhere to go, partly because something inside him told him to wait. An hour passed, then another. Jared's stomach rumbled, but he didn't move. His eyes grew heavy. He shifted on the bench, trying to get comfortable. But the seats were hard and the cold crept in from the floor. Then came the sound. Soft footsteps. A voice, steady and polite. Mr. Jared Miles? Jared opened his eyes. A man in a gray suit stood in front of him. He was tall, clean-shaven, with a driver's cap tucked under one arm. Behind him, a sleek black car waited at the curb just outside the sliding glass doors. Are you Jared Miles? The man asked again. Jared blinked. Yes? The man gave a small bow. Ms. Brennan sent me. She asked me to escort you. Escort me? Jared stood slowly. I don't understand. Your bags, sir, the man said, reaching for Jared's duffel with practiced ease. Jared followed, still unsure if this was real or some strange dream brought on by hunger and exhaustion. The car was spotless. Leather seats, smooth music playing, low, and the smell of fresh cedar. The driver didn't speak as they moved through a private access road behind the terminal. Jared looked out the window in silence, heart thudding in his chest. They pulled up beside a private hangar. Outside, under golden lights, stood Lottie. But she wasn't the tired traveler from earlier. Now she wore a tailored coat and stood tall, her hair neatly styled, her posture confident. Beside her, a small white jet waited with a gold logo painted near the tail. Jared stepped out slowly, staring. I told you I'd find you, Lottie said, smiling. I thought you were on your flight, he said, his voice quiet. I changed my plans, she replied. Why? Jared asked. Lottie stepped closer. Because you changed yours. You gave up something important for a stranger. That matters more than you know. Jared stared at her, struggling to find words. Come with me, she said. We have some things to talk about. The jet's stairs were down. The engines were quiet but ready. Jared hesitated, his feet planted like stone. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Completely," she said. "But only if you choose to come." Jared looked back at the terminal, at the bench where he'd waited, at the empty place where his old plans had been. Then he looked at Lottie and he stepped forward. Inside the plane, everything was quiet and warm. The seats were soft cream leather. Lights glowed along the walls. A steward offered him water. Lottie sat across from him, hands folded on her lap. "You're probably wondering who I really am," she said. "It crossed my mind," Jared replied, his voice still cautious. "I own an aviation company," she said. "Private jets, global travel, but that's not what matters most." Jared raised an eyebrow. "Then what does?" "What matters is how people treat each other," she said simply. "Especially when there's nothing to gain. I built my company on that idea, and I've been searching for people who live it." Jared said nothing. "You passed my test today," she continued, without even knowing there was one. Jared looked down at his hands. "What happens now?" he asked. Lottie smiled. "That depends. How do you feel about building something bigger than just your own future?" The plane began to move, taxiing down a quiet runway. Jared didn't know where they were going, but for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of the unknown. He was ready to find out. The hum of the engines was steady, almost calming. Jared sat by the window, staring at the city lights below as the jet rose into the sky. Everything still felt surreal. Only hours ago, he was rushing through the airport hoping to catch a flight. Now he was sipping water on a private plane, next to a woman who had just turned his world upside down. Lottie sat across from him, quiet, for a moment watching him with thoughtful eyes. "You look like a man trying to solve a puzzle," she said softly. Jared let out a small laugh. "I'm trying to figure out how this became my life." "It became your life," Lottie replied, "because you made a choice. When no one else stopped, you did." Jared looked down at his hands. "I thought I was just doing what anyone should do, and yet almost no one did," she said. A soft chime rang through the cabin. The plane had reached cruising altitude. The steward brought them warm towels and a small tray of snacks. Jared took a sip of tea and waited, finally. Lottie opened the leather folder in front of her and slid it toward him. "Take a look," she said. Inside were printed documents, photos, and maps. Jared scanned the first page. It was a proposal, a training program for young mechanics, hands-on work, aviation basics, job placement. The title at the top read, Aviation Youth Initiative, Nairobi Pilot Program. "This is in Kenya?" he asked. Lottie nodded. "We're starting in Nairobi, then expanding to other countries. Ghana, Peru, Thailand, places where opportunity is needed most." Jared flipped through the pages. Classrooms, toolkits, housing for students. There were names of communities and local partners. "And you want me to—" "What exactly?" he asked. "We want you to lead," Lottie said. "Teach, guide, build something that lasts." Jared leaned back in his seat. "I'm just a mechanic. I've never worked on planes. I've never taught anyone but my nephew in the garage." "But you've done more than that," she said. "You've fixed more than machines. You've built trust. You've shown patience. That's what we need." Jared was quiet. "We'll train you," Lottie added. "We'll support your move. Your son would attend school there. It's not just a job, it's a life change." He looked back out the window. "This is a lot," he whispered. Lottie smiled. "I know. I had a job interview today," he said, more to himself than her. It was supposed to be the answer, stable, safe, I knew what to expect. "Do you still want to go?" she asked. He hesitated. "I think I need to." Lottie nodded. "Good. Go. Hear them out. See what they offer. Then decide." The plane continued to glide through the sky. For a while, neither of them spoke. Jared closed the folder and set it on his lap. Part of him felt like he didn't belong here, But another part, a quieter, stronger part, felt something different. Hope. They landed in Atlanta just before midnight. A car was waiting for Jared. Lottie didn't join him. Instead, she handed him the folder again. "Call me after the interview," she said. "I'll be nearby." Jared watched her disappear back into the plane. He held the folder tight as the driver took him to a small hotel downtown. He didn't sleep much. The next morning, he stood in front of a tall glass building with the name Brightline Auto Group etched above the door. He straightened his shirt, fixed his tie, and stepped inside. The receptionist greeted him with a bright smile and handed him a visitor badge. Minutes later, he was sitting across from the head of operations, a man named Mr. Granger. The interview was smooth. They asked about his experience, his skills, his past projects. Jared answered honestly, describing the years he spent fixing cars, mentoring teens in his neighborhood, building tools from scraps when budgets were tight. "You're clearly experienced," Mr. Granger said, nodding. "We'd love to bring you on as a senior tech. Full benefits, $48,000 to start, overtime available." Jared thanked him politely and asked for a day to think it over. Outside, the sun was bright, but the feeling in Jared's chest was cloudy. He sat on a bench, the folder still in his hands. He opened it again, reading every page more carefully this time. There was something different about this opportunity. It wasn't just about money, it was about meaning, about building something for others. His phone buzzed. A message from Lottie. "Dinner tonight. Rooftop. Hotel Haven." 7 p.m. Jared smiled. That evening, as the sun dipped below the city skyline, he rode an elevator to the top floor of a tall downtown hotel. Lottie was already there, standing by a window with a view that stretched for miles. She turned as he stepped out. "You came?" she said. "I had to," he replied. They sat down at a table by the glass. Soft music played. The air smelled like roasted herbs and fresh bread. "How was the interview?" she asked. "Good," Jared said. "Steady pay, clean shop, but something about it felt small, like it wasn't enough." Lottie nodded. "Because you're meant for something bigger." Jared took a deep breath. "I'm thinking about it, really thinking." "That's all I ask," she said. "The offer stands. The runway is open." Jared looked out at the stars above the city. His life was changing, and this time, it felt like he was finally choosing the direction. The morning sun rose slowly over Nairobi, painting the sky in warm shades of gold and orange. Soft rays of light spilled across the grounds of the Aurora Training Center, bouncing off the windows and the metal wings of 3 grounded aircraft parked near the hangar. Jared Miles stood on the balcony of the main building, hands resting on the railing. He wore a navy blue shirt stitched with a small emblem above his chest. It showed a rising sun cradled by a pair of wings. The same emblem now marked the walls of the training center he helped bring to life. Below him, students moved. Across the courtyard, some carried tools, others flipped through thick manuals, their faces filled with focus and determination. It had been 16 months since Jared made his decision, since he walked away from the safe offer in Atlanta and stepped into something unknown, something far greater. He thought of his son Malik, now enrolled in a bilingual school nearby. Malik had made friends quickly and had recently told Jared he wanted to learn how engines fly. "Just like you, Dad," he had said. A quiet smile touched Jared's lips. He watched 2 trainees test a hydraulic lift under the wing of a training jet. Their movements were careful but sure. They reminded him of his early days in the auto shop, learning by doing, making mistakes and fixing them. Except here they weren't just fixing parts. They were fixing futures. A black SUV pulled into the compound, its arrival quiet but noticeable. Jared knew the vehicle. He straightened his back, a flicker of nervousness rising. Even after all this time, she still made him feel like he was being watched by someone who saw deeper than most. The car door opened. Lottie Brennan stepped out. Wearing a pale linen blazer and sunglasses she removed slowly. Her silver hair was neatly pinned, her presence calm but commanding. Jared walked down the steps to greet her. "Miss Brennan," he said, offering his hand. She shook it firmly. "You look like you belong here." "Most days I feel like I do," he replied. They walked together through the training floor. Students greeted them with respectful nods, some whispering softly. Lottie took in the space with quiet pride. The clean tools, the organized workstations, the energy of young people building something with their hands. They know who you are, Jared said. You're more than a name here. You're the reason. They're standing where they are. She smiled. And you're the reason they're still showing up. You gave this place heart. They stopped in front of a large metal plaque fixed to the hangar wall. It read, Aurora Training Initiative, East Africa Center, launched in partnership with the Miles Foundation. Jared still remembered the day she insisted his name be added. As the sun moved higher, students gathered for the next class. Jared gave a short talk about the importance of listening to machines, not just hearing the sounds but understanding what they mean. Lottie stood at the back, quietly watching. After the class ended, Jared walked her back to the SUV. She paused before getting in. We're breaking ground in Sao Paulo in 5 months, she said. It's a big one. Bigger than this one. It'll need someone to lead. Jared raised an eyebrow. You're offering me that role? I'm offering you the choice, she said. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked back at the hangar, at the students packing up, at the tools being cleaned, at the quiet hum of progress. He thought of Malik, who had started building his own model airplanes. He thought of his father, whose picture now hung in his office with a note taped beside it. The note said, Stay nearby. You'll be found. Jared turned back to her. I'll think about it, he said. Lottie smirked. You always do. She stepped into the SUV, rolled down the window, and looked at him one last time. And Jared, she said, her voice softer now. Thank you for carrying my bags that day. He nodded, his chest tight with emotion. Thank you for stopping to see me. The car pulled away, leaving behind a soft trail of dust on the road. Jared stood still for a long moment. Then he turned and walked back into the hangar. There was a class to prepare, tools to inspect, and a new group of students arriving tomorrow. Somewhere in the world, in some busy airport or quiet street, someone else might be facing the same choice he once did. To rush past or to stop and help. And maybe, just maybe, they would make the same choice. Because sometimes, the flight you miss isn't the end of your journey. It's the beginning of a runway you didn't even know was waiting for you.